Hey everyone, it is just turning on noon now, so I think we will go ahead and get started so that I don't keep you later than I promise. So we'll go ahead and start. I'm April Rozzo, one of Florida Cancer Specialists, registered dietitians. So if you have done the wellness series before, you know me. If not, welcome if this is your first time. So March is National Nutrition Month, for anyone that didn't know. And there's usually a different theme every year. So this year, the theme is Celebrate a World of Flavors. And we are going to incorporate that into today's topic of plant-based health. So we're going to do a few things today. If I can get there we go. We are going to first talk about what a plant-based diet is, what that means. And we are also going to talk about the health benefits of a plant-based diet, and also what it means to be healthy for the planet, planetary health. And don't worry, I would never leave you without tips of how to put that into your daily plan. So lastly, we are going to talk about how to build those plant-based meals and how to put more plants into your diet. Okay. And just some housekeeping. If you have questions, we've got a chat box, we've got a Q&A box. I've got both of them open. I will probably go ahead and hold questions until the end. I've saved time for questions at the end. Feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A box, or you can wait until the end also. But let's go ahead and get started. So what is a plant-based diet? And actually, I will ask everybody before I jump to the next slide. We've got about 20 people on the call. What does a plant-based diet mean to you? Am I telling everyone to be vegetarian, vegan? Can we have fish? Any ideas what that plant-based diet might mean to you guys? I'm going to give you a couple minutes to maybe throw some answers in the chat box. I saw Angie just jumped on the call. Angie's idea of a plant-based diet was an attempt at lentils last night, and then her family voted for shepherd's pie. Sorry, Angie, I called you out. So we're getting some responses. I think it means getting most of your nutrients from plants. The majority of the meal is vegetable, plant-centered. Yes to all of those things. So plant-based does not have to mean vegetarian or vegan. It can, and that is certainly a healthy choice to eliminate animal food from your diet, but you don't have to go that far. Plant-based just means that the emphasis is on plant-based foods. So what do we mean by plant-based foods? Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, so beans, lentils, nuts and seeds. All of those foods are plant-based. And so plant-based diet, if somebody tells you to eat a plant-based diet, that means changing the proportions of your plate so that we're getting smaller amounts of animal-based foods and larger amounts of plant-based foods. And there are lots of different models that you can follow, eating models. The one that we talk about a lot, or that you'll hear us talk about a lot, is the New American Plate. That is from the American Institute of Cancer Research. And so the idea behind the New American Plate is 2/3 of your plate are plant-based foods. And then only 1/3 or less on your plate is animal protein, animal food. Another model you can look at is My Plate. So if you've ever talked with any of us, we've probably mentioned my plate before. The USDA kind of ditched the food guide pyramid. That was the model we used to use, was that food guide pyramid. And it has evolved into my plate. So you can see it looks very similar to the New American plate. The ratios are slightly different. So my plate divides a meal plate to where 1/4 of the plate is protein, possibly your animal protein. And then 3/4 of the plate are your plant-based foods, your fruits, your vegetables, your whole grains, with the option of some low-fat dairy on the side, which would be part of your animal protein as well. The other model we can look at that I talk about all the time is the Mediterranean diet. And so again, very similar. If we look at the Mediterranean diet in pyramid form, the base of the nutrition, now I know the base of the pyramid is physical activity. That's a whole other conversation. We're going to focus on the nutrition today. But the base of that nutrition pyramid is all plants. It's all your fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds, an emphasis on heart-healthy fats like olive oil, avocados, your nuts and seeds that we mentioned. And then as the pyramid gets more narrow, the proportions of these animal foods at the top of the pyramid get smaller. So fish and seafood, poultry, your chicken, turkey, eggs, dairy, and then way at the top of that pyramid in very small amounts is red meat and your sweets or processed foods. Okay, so they all have a slightly different slant, but they're all telling you the same thing: to eat more plants and less animal on the plate at your meals. All right, so that's the focus. That's what we mean by plant-based. There are lots of benefits to a plant-based diet. We know that plants have a lot of fiber. That's where you're getting most of your fiber in the diet, is from your fruits and vegetables and whole grains. That fiber helps promote fullness so that we don't overeat. It can help lower cholesterol. You're also getting from a lot of your plant-based foods phytonutrients. So all of those vitamins and minerals and antioxidants that help boost the immune system, can help decrease inflammation and the oxidative stress that causes cell damage. We're getting all of that from our plant-based foods. We're also getting a lot of magnesium, potassium, folate, other vitamins like vitamin A and vitamin C, that we don't necessarily get from a lot of those meats and processed foods. Having all those plants in your diet can also help lower the risk for a lot of chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease and high blood pressure, cancer. If you have stuck with me for a while, we've talked about healthy aging and something called the MIND diet before, that focuses on a lot of fruits and vegetables, plant-based foods to help slow cognitive decline, dementia, and those memory issues. So we're getting all of these benefits from just adding more plants into the diet. But what about the planet? How does the planet benefit from this? So over decades, we have learned how to increase food production, which has improved life expectancy, reduced hunger and global poverty, reduced mortality rates. But a lot of those benefits have been offset by trending towards unhealthy eating patterns and habits. So this kind of Western style dietary pattern of a lot of red meat, more processed, refined carbs, added sugars, fat, salt, and not a lot of plant foods has been proven fairly unsustainable in the long run, especially as the population grows, and also conflicts with reducing those mortality rates and improving life expectancy. If we look at it just from an environmental perspective, those animal-based foods really are more resource intensive. So you can see on this chart, we've got plant-based crops on this side, and we've got the animal-based crops on the other side, and we're looking at land use, fresh water consumption, CO2 emissions, and is particularly beef, and I'm not saying you can never eat beef, we just said in smaller portions, but we can see that those animal-based food crops or animal-based foods really require more resources, natural resources. So they are a little bit more of a drain on the planet, especially when we look at what the future holds. So right now, the population as of 2020 was at 7.8 billion people, and it's anticipated to increase to 10 billion by 2050. What that means from this resource perspective is that we're going to need 50 to 60% more food to feed all of those extra people. And the way we're doing it right now with that emphasis on animal-based foods and the demand on our resources isn't sustainable to reach that goal. It's more achievable with a couple of things: reduction in food waste and changes in the food production practices, i.e. more plants, trying to move us to a more plant-based diet. So that introduces us to the Eat Lancet Commission that came about in 2019. So that commission was put together. It's made up of 37 scientists from around the world who studied these global practices over a period of 3 years and put a report out with the first scientific targets or recommendations for healthy, sustainable food systems. And you can guess, this graphic looks very, very similar to what we've been talking about: more plant-based foods for planetary health. So not just for our health, but also for the sustainability of our planetary resources. More plant-based foods. It does not eliminate animal-based foods. So there is still that flexibility to include the foods, especially when we're talking about celebrating a world of flavors. There is that flexibility to include your traditions, your cultural foods, your favorite foods, just smaller amounts of things like those animal-based foods, your refined grains, the added sugars, the saturated fats. Now, it is very obvious, we all know, that there are large parts of the world that don't have access to a lot of these healthy foods, that can't afford a lot of these foods. And so part of the commission's report called for global policy changes to make healthy and sustainable foods more accessible, more affordable. Again, this report is very new. We haven't seen those broad, widespread changes yet, but I'm hopeful that that is what's to come in the future. We mentioned not only does this method of eating, this pattern of eating globally will reduce those early mortality rates from chronic diseases, but again, they also benefit the health of the planet and promote that sustainability. So how do we do it, right? What do we overhaul our diet? How do we start eating a more plant-based diet? Start small is the first step, okay? Start by trying a new vegetable or a new grain. Then you start to maybe change the portions of different foods on your plate. So maybe your old plate, your traditional plate, looks like this, with a large piece of red meat, a lot of starch. We got potatoes with butter, we got peas. And so maybe the first change is just to introduce a healthier starch. We don't even have brown rice. It's still white rice, but it's a smaller portion and it's a grain. And now we've gotten rid of the other starch and we've added a different vegetable. Now we've got green beans and a smaller portion of the red meat. So simple little changes to start with. just to get you used to it. And then eventually you start adding more vegetables. So we transition to this new American plate where we've got several different colors of vegetables on the plate. We've got a nice small portion of chicken, so it's not even red meat anymore. And now we've got a different grain. Maybe that's bulgur wheat or quinoa or something on that plate. Okay, so it's okay that slow transition and get used to these different foods and changing the portions. We can also start to look at different plant-based protein sources so that we're not so dependent on animal meat and chicken and fish and dairy for all of our protein through the day. So things like edamame and tofu, legumes, lentils, whole grains, your nuts and seeds, those are all sources of protein from plants. So how do we use them? Maybe you're not familiar with all of these. Edamame, if you're not familiar with edamame, they're either lightly boiled or steamed soybeans. They make a great snack by themselves, but they also go great on top of a salad to add protein to your leafy green salad. You can get them in the pods like that in the picture. Right here in this first picture. You can also get them, I have them from the frozen section, just bags of the edamame themselves without the pods, or shelled rather. And I just keep it in the freezer and I can pull out a serving to put in soup or top my salad or however I want to use it. Whole grains are not only a great protein source, they're also packed full of fiber. So things like oats and barley, bulgur, wild rice, farro, you can use it just like you would use white rice. You can put it, mix it with beans and rice. You can put it in soups, you can put it in casseroles. It'll help add some bulk to your meal and allow you to decrease some of that animal protein. Same with those legumes, the beans that we talked about. Great source of fiber and protein. They're doing double duty for you. And we said they pair great with these grains, with rice. Same as grains, add them to soups, add them to your casseroles, because they're going to help fill you up while you're taking away some of the chicken or the meat that you're putting in that soup or casserole. Nuts and seeds make a great crunchy topping. You can put on yogurt, on oatmeal, salad. You can have it as a snack by itself, a little handful of nuts, or pair it with fruit. Maybe you have some apple slices and a handful of nuts. They're a great source of heart-healthy fat as well as the protein. So we're getting away from that saturated fat and doing something good for your heart as well. So ultimately, even if you have meat as the main protein on your dish, let's say you have chicken or you have fish or shrimp, we can still add more veggies into the meal or through the day. So grilled vegetable kebabs or a homemade veggie pizza. Let's say you do a side, like a little pasta salad. That the picture, this bottom picture here, we've got some tricolor orzo pasta mixed with fresh tomatoes, spinach, a little bit of crumbled feta cheese, and it's tossed with like just olive oil and lemon juice and a little bit of oregano for some seasoning. You could pair that with a meat, or you could add chickpeas to this dish and make it a complete one meal on its own because the chickpeas are providing the protein for you. You could do vegetable wraps with roasted veggies, some hummus or guacamole, and then all wrapped in a whole wheat tortilla. I like to keep veggies already chopped and cut and ready to eat in the fridge. And I might have that with some hummus, or pictured here is a yogurt dip, a yogurt-based dip with turmeric for some flavoring, a little kick. So that would make a great midday snack when you're trying to avoid eating anything really high in fat and calories. Some other options, things that we can do: add vegetables to your eggs in the morning, put it in an omelet, or top or do like a sauteed veggie hash with your scrambled eggs. Instead of covering your baked potato with butter and sour cream, maybe top it with some black beans and salsa, tomato salsa. We can put more vegetables into our soup. So let's say we've got a base of chicken noodle soup, right? You could cut back on the chicken, you could cut back on the noodles, you could add some lentils, you could add some veggies. Maybe instead of the egg noodles, you put one of those grains in, you put barley wheat in there instead of the egg noodles. So now it's not really chicken noodle soup anymore, but it sounds delicious, right? And it's got all these vegetables and grains and fiber in it. You can sneak vegetables, shredded vegetables like shredded zucchini or shredded carrots into casseroles or things like lasagna or meatloaf. When you make mashed potatoes, you can use half potatoes and half cauliflower to kind of cut back on the starchy carbs and add another serving of vegetables. You can put veggies in your pasta sauce. I like to keep frozen vegetables, frozen fruits and vegetables on hand so that if I'm ready to cook, but I don't have any fresh vegetables, I don't have to stop what I'm doing and make a trip to the grocery store. I can just pull something out of the freezer. I can steam it or roast it or stir fry it. You've got a lot of options that way. And on the sweet side, you can cook down fruits, puree them, and use them as a topping. Maybe let's say you're splurging on pancakes or waffles on a Sunday morning. You could put the fruit puree, on top of those instead of maple syrup with all the sugar. So it's just another way to add those plant-based options into your diet and cut back on some of those processed foods, okay? Don't forget to have fun and explore. We said the theme this year for National Nutrition Month is to celebrate a world of flavors. And so embrace those global flavors. Maybe you make breakfast smoothies or snack smoothies. Maybe you typically stick to strawberries and bananas. How about we try some tropical fruits like mango or papaya in your smoothie? We've got pictured a lot of different options. It's a little bit chilly. The temperature's up and down right now. Maybe we have a nice, warm, hearty Indian curried lentil stew. Or as we get into the summer months, how about some gazpacho? If you've never heard of gazpacho, it's a soup served cold. And the base is usually, the vegetable base is usually tomatoes, onions, and cucumbers kind of chopped down. And in the summer, they use watermelon, like chopped up pureed watermelon as a base to go with those vegetables and serve it all together. These spring rolls, Vietnamese spring rolls, a really nice, healthy alternative to those deep fried egg rolls that we like so much. These are packed full of fresh vegetables. I see some rice. Sometimes there's a protein like tofu in there, and it's wrapped in rice paper and served cold. So all of these, you don't have to eat these particular foods, but explore those other cultural foods. You might discover something that you love that you never knew before. And don't forget your spices too. We're used to salt and pepper. Maybe we're used to garlic, but there is a whole world of spices out there, like cumin and paprika and turmeric. A lot of us are cooking with ginger, rosemary, basil. So don't be afraid to try some of those spices if you're not familiar with them. And here's a little teaser for next month. If you're joining me for the Teaching Kitchen next month, we're going to be doing a chicken stir fry with turmeric. So that's going to be really fun. I don't cook with turmeric that often, and this recipe is completely delicious. It's a whole new spice for me. So have fun, explore new foods, but try to make them plant-based. Okay. And we've got about 5 minutes left. We've done pretty well. I will be happy to try to answer whatever questions you guys have at this point before I let you go.
April, while we're waiting for folks to ask some questions, I'm going to throw a couple links in.
Okay.
To the chat, because I looked, I did planetary diet like 3 years ago now, but I just looked at mine. I didn't like it, but I'm going to include my newsletter. So I'm going to include some of the references that I used. And if people want to read them, and then I'll let you take questions while I do that.
Did you, Angie, now, because I'm still waiting. Oh, we've got a question. Hang on, Angie, to be delayed. What veggies are low in fiber? Most of your veggies are going to be really good sources of fiber. Some have more than others. For example, avocados are a really great source of fiber. Iceberg lettuce is mostly water. But by and large, most of your fruits and veggies are great fiber options. That's where we're getting most of our fiber in the diet, is fruits, veggies, and whole grains. If you have to be on a low fiber diet for a particular reason, for a medical issue or a concern, you can do canned veggies. And I would say if you're going the route of canned veggies, make sure that you're trying to get them low sodium, no added sodium, rinse them when you drain them. Or you can do fresh veggies and cook them really well. You want them really, really soft and tender so that you're helping to kind of break down the fiber and make it easier to digest, if that's a concern. But by and large, we want all those fruits and veggies in the diet for the fiber benefits. Somebody loved the Brussels sprout salad from the last month. Thank you. I loved it too. It was fantastic. I was really excited to put that together. Hopefully you will join me next month for the, we're doing the turmeric chicken and we're pairing it with asparagus, because asparagus has such a short seasonal window. You can get asparagus for a longer period of time, but the price goes way up. So for a few weeks in the spring, asparagus is nice and cheap and it's on sale and it's really great fresh. So we're going to do that turmeric chicken with asparagus next month. Hopefully you will join us for that too. Angie, thank you for the links. I'm just scrolling to see what else. Oh, that Harvard link that you put in, Angie, that's one of the sources that I used for this as well, was that Harvard website, the article.
Yeah, they have a nice little plate. And I think that's where I did like a quote I used, which is from Marianne Nessel, one of our like four mothers of nutrition. She says, fortunately, the diet that is best for health is the same diet that is best for the planet.
Yes. Yes. And the planetary diet, we did not go into detail for time's sake. The planetary diet, the recommendations that commission, that Lancet commission put out, were very specific. Like they provide amounts, daily, weekly amounts for red meat, for fish, for chicken, to try to limit, to encourage more plant-based foods. I did not go into that much detail here for time's sake, but it's just the idea of starting to change the portions and shrinking those portions of animal products, increasing the portions of the plants on your plate. And that's how you can contribute to your health and the planet's health. I thought that was important.
Yeah, the whole Lancet report is a lot. I did link that. You have to register to take it, but it is free. The Today's Dietitian does a pretty nice job reviewing it too.
Fantastic. To hosts and panelists, let's see, somebody can't see the links. Can everybody else see the links, or did Angie send them just to me? It looks like you sent them to everybody, Angie.
Yeah, I thought I sent them to everybody. I'm really sorry. I was so excited to do that.
No one can see the links.
Panelist. Oh, I'm so sorry, everyone. Let me make that. I am so sorry. Here, I thought I was so cool.
Oh my goodness, you were doing so well. You were.
Oh, look at me. See, here we go. There's the Lancet link, and that is super long. But some people like super long,
right?
And now thanks, April Perkins. And then here comes the Today's Dietitian nice summary. Let me find the Harvard one. The Harvard one has their nice little plate too. I loved the plate that you used, April. That was
so. I think I got that from the Harvard article. That plate for the planetary health diet. got two.
Yeah, I'm just finding them. There we go.
Yeah, yeah. Can we just cut and paste the other one?
Got it.
Oh, okay. Excellent. So everyone should be able to see those links now. Thank you so much, Angie. I appreciate that. How often did I say to eat lean meat, protein like chicken, turkey, and etc.? So on the Mediterranean diet, they recommend, because the emphasis on the Mediterranean diet is more seafood than chicken or red meat. So on that Mediterranean pyramid, they recommend fish at least twice a week. In general, there is no, unless you're following the planetary diet, there's no specific recommendation for how much chicken or turkey to eat per week. There are recommendations, cancer prevention recommendations for red meat to eat less than 18 ounces per week. Now that is stricter if you're following the planetary diet pattern. So for that planetary diet, they actually only recommend they put it in grams, but if I'm putting it in terms for us, because we're not used to grams, we're used to ounces, right? So for the red meat on the planetary diet, they're actually only recommending about a quarter of a pound, so like a quarter pounder per week, like just that much red meat per week. And so that's a huge change from what we're used to. I can't remember what their recommendation is for poultry, for chicken, turkey, and eggs. I'd have to go back and look at that Lancet report. But if you're just following a plant-based diet, you're not strictly following the protocols for the planetary health diet, there are not strict number of servings per week necessarily for poultry, just the red meat. We want to really cut back on red meat. But I would say, even if you're doing chicken and turkey 3 or 4 times a week, the idea is to just keep those portions smaller. So instead of a giant 8-ounce chicken breast, the goal is to get your portion to the palm of your hand, which is 3 to 4 ounces. That should be a serving of meat, of chicken, of red meat, of fish. 3 to 4 ounces would be a serving. I hope I answered that question for you. All right, guys, we are just past 12:30. I think I've covered all the questions. Thank you so much for joining us today. And like I said, tune in next month. Turmeric chicken and asparagus. It's delicious, I promise. Thanks, everybody.